Considering that we're working on queer ethnic woggy time, we've done pretty well. That it's, you know, just hitting 110, so clap, clap, you know, good on us. All right, my name is Alina Muhammad Ali. I'm the president of the Australian Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender, Intersex, Queer Multicultural Council, Inc. And I'd like to welcome you all here today. Thank you for coming. Just a quick couple of housekeeping points. First one is phones, please turn them off. Unless you're a doctor, otherwise no excuses. It's a Sunday, for God's sakes. Second thing I need to say is that we are filming this session because we have requests from people in other states that they would like to view these proceedings. So if any of the speakers do not want to be filmed, now's the time to speak up. No? Okay, good. And we are taking photographs as well, and that will potentially mean photographs of the audience. So if anyone here does not want their photograph taken, that includes speakers again. What? No? Okay, good. And the audience, please go and see that gentleman against the wall.
Or just put your hand up, that's fine.
Yep. Unless you don't, and if you don't feel like putting your hand up, but go and see Mikey later and just tell him that you don't want your photo taken. Don't put him on the spot right now.
Okay.
It's been nice and collaborative.
So we can be put on the spot.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually not going to be emceeing this event. We've got Maria, who's the secretary of the AGMC, who will be doing that. And I'm not even officially opening this function either.
What are you doing there?
I just like the sound of my own voice, especially on the microphone, hence I do radio. Who is actually opening and far better suited than me is the member for Paran, Tony Lupton. Now Tony, many of us in the queer community will know because Tony's been a great supporter of the LGBTIQ community for many, many years. When I used to be involved in the lobby, many a time I have seen him at rallies, I have dragged him to events, I have been begging him for change, and yes, he's been a great ambassador and an advocate for us. And not only will he open the forum today officially, but he will also present the AGMC with some money. So yes, it's very exciting. We have a couple of checks, or we have a check from the Victorian Multicultural Commission, so Tony will present that as well. So if you could join me thanking Tony for opening us. Oh, welcome Tony for opening this forum today. Thank you. Push that up a bit.
Thank you. Well, Ali, thank you very much for those very kind words of welcome, and to you, to John Seamas, to Maria, all the members of the committee. It's terrific to be here today, and terrific to see so many good friends here today. Also, it's wonderful to catch up at a variety of terrific functions throughout the year, and this is a really important one, and I'm delighted to be able to participate in it for a period of time today and to officially open the forum. And of course, not forgetting, I'm sure you won't allow me to forget to hand over that cheque before I get the microphone a little later. But you have asked me to spend a few moments speaking about the state of affairs here in Victoria, the way in which we do want to try and encourage the sort of activities that the AGMC is very soundly pursuing, and so I would like to take the opportunity to spend a few moments doing that. Maria and I were taking the opportunity to chat about some of these issues just a little earlier before we started, and I think all of us in this room, certainly, and I believe the vast majority of people out around Melbourne and around Victoria do understand and appreciate diversity. And we are here today talking about ways in which we can try and encourage that sort of cross-fertilisation, if you like, between different groups in the community. And we see it in Victoria in so many different ways and in so many different layers. Whether it's in the GLBTIQ community, whether it's in multicultural communities, whether it's in people who are living in areas such as the one that I have the privilege to represent in the Victorian Parliament, where you have such a diversity of socio-economic groups, where we literally in this electoral district of Paran have people living in social housing, living next door to people who are millionaires. And it is a very cohesive community. And when the council was formed and decided to take the GLBTIQ community into the multicultural space, I think it's a very positive thing for the community. and a very positive thing for Victoria, because it is through people interacting in all of the different ways that we are able to strengthen ourselves and our community through the diversity that we experience. There are people who are here today from so many different multicultural groups who may not necessarily have any great connection with each other if it wasn't for the fact that they are part of the GLBTIQ community. And one of the things that we see, I think, in Victoria that we try to encourage as a government and I think as a community is to work on how those bridges can be built. But not only building the bridge, I think we can do a certain amount in building them, but how do you get people to walk across them? And not just wave at people on the other side, but actually relate to each other, understand where they're coming from. And it's through organisations like yours that I believe we are making great progress, great strides forward in building understanding between people. We have seen a lot of change over the last decade in Victoria, and I believe that we've probably done better in our state through the collaborative arrangements, the dialogue, the community dialogue, in eradicating discrimination from our statute books, but most importantly from the mindset of people out there in the community than anywhere else. It's been a step-by-step process. I think some people, no doubt, like progress to be faster in all sorts of different ways. But I think the way that we've achieved the outcomes in Victoria has probably been, in the end, a testament to the way that things have been done. And the community itself has been very largely responsible for bringing that about. We've seen a lot of pretty important social issues discussed in Victoria in recent years, some directly affecting your community, but some affecting women, some affecting people in different religious groups. We had a very, I think, extraordinarily positive debate about abortion here in Victoria not very long ago. And I believe we passed a law in Victoria decriminalising abortion that is, I think, one that can be held up anywhere in the world as a positive example of social change that was brought about, I think, in a very positive and collaborative way. There are always, of course, some doomsayers out there who thought the whole show was going to collapse as a result of that. We're going to have hospitals closing down and all sorts of things, if you recollect the stories that were being put about by people. Of course, none of that happened. And approaching things in that way, approaching these serious social issues in a collaborative way, making sure we have a sensible dialogue out there in the community, I believe we can continue to achieve great progress. And when we talk about the sort of subject that your experts are going to talk about today, that interrelationship between sexuality, culture and religion, I think that's probably the great next step that we need to take as a community. Religious groups, I believe, are very important in our society for a whole range of ways, and I don't think there's much doubt about that. We all come at our religious beliefs or our spirituality in our own individual way, but it's important for us as a society to move religion into the social justice space. We can't simply have religious debate dominated by very narrow sectional interests that are to do with restricting people and people's freedoms and people's thoughts. I have a very close affinity with the Catholic community and with the Jewish community for a range of reasons. I was brought up Catholic, my wife's Jewish. You know, it's one of those, I suppose, examples of multicultural Victoria and Melbourne. But whether you come at these issues from the point of view of one religion or another or many, taking these debates out of the narrow sectional conscience type issues into a broad social justice agenda is really, I believe, the way that we can move all of these debates forward. It shouldn't matter if you are gay or lesbian, or you are black or white, or you are a Muslim or a Jewish person or an atheist. You've got an inherent right to expect decency, respect and understanding in our society, and religions have an important part to play in that. If we don't engage in some way in that debate, then the people out on the extremes are going to be the ones that get all of the attention. And I think in the religious communities here in Victoria, there are very, very many, the overwhelming bulk of people that I come in contact with in my work want to make sure that we engage in a very positive way. We build those understandings, we build those bridges between communities, and it's through discussions such as yours today, I believe we're going to continue to further that aim and make that progress. So I'm really delighted to be able to spend those few minutes with you, passing on those thoughts and hopefully that encouragement on behalf of myself and also our government, and to be able to officially open the forum and to hand over this cheque to Ali on behalf of the Victorian Multicultural Commission, which is in part to help support the funding of today's forum and also to help with the organisational support of the Council through the year ahead. Maria, come on up, please. And while we do this, can we give a round of applause for Maria for her organisation today?
Excellent.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you,
Look
Tony.
forward to seeing you again very soon. Being a Sunday and a politician, I've got more functions to attend to, so I hope you'll excuse me and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, well that concludes my part of being up here on the microphone. I am going to now ask Maria to come up as the MC for today's forum and take over. So, Maria?
Thank you. Yes, taking over. Actually, I must admit, this is fantastic. Welcome, everyone. I've had the pleasure of working with Shanton, Madeline and Aliena at Deakin Uni in the School of Health and Social Development where I'm at, and I've watched students just love it and debate and engage. And some of the students that we have out around Burwood do come from some of the communities that Tony talks about in terms of some quite strong religious views, so this is great. Okay, I'm also going to be a bit of a dominatrix up here, which I quite like, because my job is to make sure that these amazing people, and it's really hard, I hate editing, I seem to do a lot of that in my life to people as well. I have to make sure that everyone sticks to a 10 minutes presentation, even though we're asking them to talk about all those amazing facets of themselves and how each community wants a certain slice of them, and how do we work with that. So 10 minutes, at 2 minutes, the power of the pen on the leather bracelet from my eyes over there will tell them you have 2 minutes left. And after 10 minutes, I'm going to stand up and expect the next person to go forward. However, I also know that sometimes there's that burning question that people have to ask. So at the end of each presentation, I'm going to say if there's anybody that has a question that can't wait till the huge discussion, great debate that we're going to have afterwards, after the break, please ask it then. And then we'll move on to the next speaker. We'll have a break because there's lots of food left out there, and coffee and tea. And then we'll come back and hopefully you'll share your experiences, your perspectives with our speakers, and we'll take it from there. Any questions of clarification, or don't you dare?
Can anyone hear me?
No, but my voice is such a foghorn anyway. I'm sure it's coming through pretty strongly. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce our president. Of course, we have to start with our wonderful president of the AGMC. Aliena Muhammad Ali is a community lawyer who, after 5 years, took a while, now calls Melbourne home. She identifies as a queer Muslim and has a demonstrated history, sure has, in LGBTIQ politics. Aliena's activism extends to her family. Just yesterday, her partner, and I love pointing this finger at and Aliena decided that they would definitely take their new baby to rallies once baby Pina arrives.
Yay!
Thank you.
Right, well, slight microphone hitch.
I'm not technical.
And we're recording the proceedings, so unfortunately we have to get a working mic. So pretend like there isn't this pause happening.
That's good. That means none of us have this on.
No, you've just been recorded.
Oh, great.
Straight next to mine.
That's right.
I haven't started timing you yet.
I could make a quip about how, being ethnics, we generally don't rely on mics that you know our voice carries, but I won't make that joke.
Yeah.
I could also make a joke about how many ethnics it takes to get the mic working, but I won't make that joke. I could also mention male, just standing, but I won't make that joke. And I could finally, I could mention that they're also gay males.
Talk to it.
Yes. We're working. Yes. Okay, oh dear. Okay, I think we're in business now. Apologies for that brief delay. All right, my story. It's going to sound a bit like a novel because I'm going to give some dates in it, but I think that's important because part of my journey has changed at certain periods of my life. So we start off on the 21st of January 1977. Precise date, important date, day I was born. And I was born in Karachi, Pakistan. My ethnicity is Pakistani, both parents, mum and dad. Yes, I don't look it, heard that many, many times. But that was a joke, you could laugh at that point. And feel free to, I have humour in my story. Humour, tragedy, bit of, pathos, a bit of, tears, good points, highlights, lowlights, so come along with me. So, born in 77 and living in Karachi, went off at 9 months to live in Dubai, mum and dad's choice of course, and spent a few years there. Came to Australia, Sydney, and then a brief stint in Melbourne, but mainly Sydney, from 1980 to 87. Then I went back to Pakistan. So if we're good with math here, I was 10 then. So in my mind, I was an Australian kid. Yeah, sure, I was brown, but in the 80s, I never ever, and I still don't remember any actual instances that have really stuck about not feeling like I was just like all the other kids at school. But 1987 takes place and I've moved back to Pakistan, and suddenly now I'm in this place where I'm told I'm not Pakistani, but I am Pakistani. I'm not Australian, but I am Australian. So here comes the first dual culture shock or snap that starts influencing how I view the world. I live in Karachi, Pakistan, all the way till 1996, so my formative years. And I come back to Australia in 97 to go to uni, and I'm 20 now. So I've visited Australia every year, but of course I've gotten more disconnected from this country, and I've been living in Pakistan. During those formative years as well, I'm in good old single-sex schools, as I was in Australia, and I go to a school called the Convent of Jesus and Mary. Yes, an Irish convent in Pakistan, where the Muslims were the majority. And I start exploring my sexual identity starts getting formed at the age of, I believe, of 13, 14, where I fall madly in love with a German ice skater, Katharina Witt, and you have to be in your 30s to know even who I'm talking about. If you're younger than that, you're not going to know. And if I looked at her today, I'd go, ugh, hideous. But because now she'd probably be in her 80s. Oops, that was a bit nasty about 80-year-olds, wasn't it? Yes, I'm a little ageist. And yet I realised then that, all right, I am actually interested in women. But at the same time, I was still, like all the other female friends that I had, interested in men. So I, like very many other people, was doing that whole, oh my God, am I gay, am I bi, what am I? And when I came back to Australia at 20, I thought, okay, I'm at university now, and I actually lived on campus, shock horror, for 3 years. And I very much yelled up and down and screamed about being bi every single day. I think I introduced myself to people as like, hi, I'm Alina, I'm a bisexual. So important to me, my sexual identity. In fact, I've got friends from college, 10, 12 years on, who still make that joke about you know, when we met her, this is what she'd say. And obviously it was really important to me that my sexual identity, I was searching it out or trying to work it or define myself in a way, which is why I chose to tell practically strangers on the street this. Now, all along this way, I was raised Muslim, and I had a progressive Muslim understanding, which basically means that religion has been encouraged, never imposed. We were taught what Islam means and pretty much told, make your own choice, my younger sister and I. Now, faith to me has always been important. Now, I can't say that religion is important, but to me, faith is important. Faith, to me, is tied up with this concept of, well, who do I yell at when things go wrong? Because I need to get angry at someone, and I can't just say, oh, it's the universe. I need to say, it's you, you know. And then on the other hand, the flip side, who do I get happy with when things go right? Who do I say, hey, thanks? Because I can't just say, oh, thank you, you know, me, because it's not just about me. So, to me, spirituality, which is where my faith lies, is very, very important. Now, you may ask, how do I reconcile being queer and Muslim? Because, as the media will tell you, and as many people might say, well, you cannot identify with any of the three monotheistical religions. And, of course, the Jew and the Christian at the table will tell me I'm wrong, or Christians. But from popular opinion, you cannot have a religion and also have a strong sexual identity, because they just don't go together, you know. That's what the Old Testament says. That's what, you know, that's what people say. That's what's out there in black and white. And to which I say, oh, look, get stuffed, you know. For want of a better way to put it, how can anyone decide whether I'm right or wrong? Like, it just boggles the mind how we live in this world where people constantly want to tell you, sorry, you can't be queer and Muslim, Catholic, you know, Jewish, whatever, or you can't, you know, you can't be a single woman having a kid, you can't be, you know, X, Y, and Z. Now, it sounds all well and hunky-dory, but, and I sound quite confident and strong, and I am now at the age of 32, but I wasn't 10 years ago. I was queer officer at my university in the year 2002, and unfortunately, I was so afraid of losing my family, my parents. I lied to my parents and said I was women's officer. I wasn't out to my parents, although for God's sakes, you know, it was obvious as all hell. But I was never out to them for years and years and years because I was so afraid of losing them. And when I did come out, the first thing my mother said to me was like, well, I hope you do realise that this means now you can't be Muslim. And she told me that I had rejected my faith, that I was basically excluding myself from the very thing that I cling on to, the whole concept of having someone to get angry at or someone to turn to when I'm happy. And that powerful short discussion that we had then was completely devastating. And I do remember that time I was living in Canberra, and I thought, well, if you can't be Muslim and you can't be queer, then one has to give. And so I decided to reject religion. I said, stuff it. I will no longer pray, I will no longer believe in anything, I will just be as queer as all hell and not care about any religious world whatsoever, or spiritual world, apologies. But I wasn't happy, because obviously a far section of my identity is tied up in this whole belief that I do have a spirituality. I do get comfort in it. It's for me, it's not for anyone else. So why should I have to give that up? You know, and I didn't see why I had to lose my family to actually just be able to identify with something. And I came back to identifying as Muslim, albeit queer Muslim. And it's important that I put the queer first, because I send a strong message out. I write that on documents. I facilitate a Yahoo group called the Queer Muslims in Australia, where I'm one of 3 facilitators, and there are 60 brave people on this list from all over Australia. Now, I don't know these people. I know maybe 5 on the entire list. Is that a 2-minute warning? Excellent, thank you. I don't know these people on the list. All I know is that these are people who are having a similar or same struggle to mine, trying to work out where does their dual identity fit. Can you be queer and Muslim? Now, I set this group up because actually the AGMC empowered me. After the 04 conference, the 04 conference, I I felt I had the guts to do it. I felt I could stop using the nickname Ali M and I could actually use my full name, Alina Muhammad Ali. I felt like I could deal with all the hate mail that I would get. I could deal with the censure and the criticism of people that I would get, and I continue to get, because I felt that if I'm not going to be brave enough to put myself out there, then who is? Because I have searched in Australia to find people like myself, and I haven't. I found many people in America and Canada and England, and so now I turn to them when I get a little bit frustrated or need support. But here in Australia, I have had to set these groups up and then thankfully get joined with by other people as well. I want to quickly mention, though, just in distinction, though, the interesting use that we were also asked to think about culture, because I think it's really important to clarify or to keep culture and religion almost separate, but as well as to recognise where they intersect. As you all know, I'm very excited about the future birth of my first child, and I've had a discussion with my partner about circumcision. Snippity snip. And I always thought that, well, Muslims snip, so therefore the kid will be snip because we've decided that we're going to raise the kid like me, progressively Muslim. But my partner turned around and said to me, "Are you sure that's in Islam?" And I said, yeah, it is. All the boys I know are snipped. And she's like, well, that's not enough just because all the boys you know. I went and researched it and I found out that it isn't actually a tenet of Islam. It's actually a cultural practice that happens, and therefore I've always just assumed it's religion, but it's not. And so that was a really interesting thing to learn, and for all those who are interested, we've decided not to snippity snip if we have a boy. So I'd like to just end on that note, that the journey's been up and down, but I have to say that I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very proud and out queer Muslim. Thank you.
One burning question? Anyone? Or is it happy to wait? No? Okay, we'll move on. My pleasure to introduce Madeline Imber. Madeline Imber has worked predominantly in the fields of education and non-normative sexuality. In 1997, she co-founded the Speakers Bureau Outspoken. I'm going to get mushy here, because I remember Madeline when she was 16. And I remember Outspoken being set up. It was fantastic. Which ran workshops in schools and universities focusing on homophobia and heterosexism. Following this, she taught English and literature in Victorian secondary schools for several years. Earlier this year, she completed a Masters in Education by research for the University of Melbourne. Her thesis focused on the experiences of lesbian and gay teachers in Victorian state schools and their understanding of the silencing nature of heteronormativity. Madeline currently works in the field of education research and is in the process of adapting her Master's thesis for publication. Yay, Madeline. Thank you.
Okay, I really have to use this. Is it actually working?
It is.
Okay.
I was getting feedback.
All right. Okay. Thank you for being my warm-up act, Ali. I was gonna talk. I was just kind of gonna give you a narrative, but I decided I wanted to frame what I was going to say more in the field of, I guess, understanding community, because that's kind of where the AGMC seems to fit as a broader community for a lot of the sort of smaller sexuality and religious and cultural groups. So I guess I'm going to talk about my identity as it fits within two communities, and it's in the lesbian community and in the Jewish community. And the most kind of distinct difference, or the most noticeable thing for me in that framework, is the fact that I'm more identifiable, more visible as a lesbian. So that sort of comes across far more tangibly when I interact with people. And I've actually found in workplaces and in, I guess, social situations, often people are far better attuned to being less homophobic than they are. Can you hear now? Is it on? Oh, that's it. Okay. That's really loud. Okay. People are far more attuned to being more sensitive to not being homophobic than they are to not being, I wouldn't say anti-Semitic, but at least insensitive to the sensitivities of being Jewish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down what I'm going to say into my sort of concept of Judaism and the way that I construct or understand my sexuality. And as Ali said, you know, Judaism, as with Islam, is, I guess, broken up into a cultural and a religious identity. So there are sort of two strands. There's the religious and the cultural. And religiously, as a Jew, I guess I construct that in my own way. I went to a Jewish primary school, and I still, I guess, faith-wise, identify as a Jew, but I practice that in ways that are, I don't want to say convenient, but in ways that resonate with me. So I observe certain rituals, I fast at certain times, and I have a faith-based understanding of Judaism that is very progressive. There's other sort of constructs of a Jewish cultural identity that I also identify with. So a Jewish thirst for knowledge and an understanding of the importance of education underpins a lot of what I do, and that's really important to me. So that sort of cultural part of Judaism is important. Other parts of Judaism where an understanding of charity or the importance of being part of a broader community, again, resonate. But by the same token, I feel quite alienated from the Jewish community, and I don't feel a strong connection to it. Because for me, I don't have a lot of Jewish friends, and I don't have a lot in common with a lot of the Jews that I went to school with have come across. So my sense of Jewish identity is very much linked to the religious side and the family side and the tenets of the culture that I grew up with, but is not practiced on a day-to-day basis. I don't have strong Jewish connections in my daily life. And that's kind of different to my sexuality. So as for my sexuality, it again has two strands. It's linked strongly to feminism. So, you know, that there's two elements, just like my religion is cultural and faith-based. My sexuality is connected to feminism as well as the sexuality itself. I came into sexuality, you know, obviously I had to construct my community based around my sexuality, whereas, you know, you're born into the Jewish community and you have these natural, sometimes irritating ties to it. So for me, as I said at the start, my sexuality implicates the way I move through the world and has a far greater kind of identity that I'm seen through, and I find that that's often far more important in my day-to-day life. Because of my Jewish identity, seeding from the mainstream community was not difficult as a lesbian because of that background. The most profound shift for me was actually, I'll give you a bit of an anecdote, was actually when I went to high school. So I went to a Jewish primary school, and my family and family friends were all mainly Jewish. And then I went to United Church High School, and I remember starting on my first, I think it was an orientation day, and I went with my mum, and there was like 300 girls hanging around with their mothers. And I said to Mum, why are they all blonde? What's going on? And I had associated with such a brunetted community that I wasn't used to this whole different world. And that, for me, this kind of distinct difference, it wasn't a religious thing, it wasn't a cultural thing, it was this, everyone looks kind of different. And I kind of feel kind of like this doesn't suit. And by the same token, coming out was quite alarming because there wasn't a community, you know. There wasn't this kind of welcoming committee when I first went into a gay bar, and I really think that would be a good idea. And I think that should be something people think about. So I had to build that community because there wasn't one automatically there for me. And it took some time to find a community within the gay and lesbian circles, and going to university was obviously really important to that. But I still didn't feel like I quite fit. So, I'd come through this Jewish identity, I didn't feel like fitted with me, and then I'd kind of built this really important lesbian community, and, as with Ali, when I went to uni, that was the forefront of my mind. And then a few years ago I went to Israel, and I thought, awesome, I'm going to find this great Jewish community, it's going to be excellent. And, despite all the political issues, which we're not going to go into because we could be here for days, no, really. But, I thought, we can have questions, fine.
After the break.
Yeah, after the break. Yeah, we'll have a question on it. So I went to Israel and thought fantastic, and so I went, and there was awesome food, and I hung out with my family over there, and everything was beautiful and wonderful. And I thought, okay, this is my big connection. So we went before my cousin's wedding. We went down to the Wailing Wall, and I thought, great, awesome place of Jewish history. I went to the wall; it looked like a wall. I thought, okay, So my brother went off to the boys' side, and my mum, my aunt, and I went to the women's side, and I went up to the wall, and it still looked like a wall, and I was waiting for, God to speak to me or something to happen. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to sit down. There were little chairs, and my mum and my aunt left, and I sat there, and I thought, okay, great, something's going to happen. And this woman came up to me, and she started speaking to me in Hebrew, and my Hebrew is terrible. So I said I didn't understand what she was saying. And in very good English, she said to me, this is the women's side. And I went, yeah, I know. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I went, I'm a woman. The awkwardness ensued. And she was quite lovely, and, apologised and left. And I thought, that's as close as I'm going to get to some kind of connection to this religion. It's not really going to work for me. So my moment with God never happened, and I left, and I realised that I wasn't going to find the community that I was hoping for in Israel, and I wasn't going to find some fabulous community here with the lesbian community where I'd suddenly meet people and feel totally connected, and there were people that I would really understand and feel bonded to. So I guess for me, you know, the sum of that is that there's no ready-made community for me in the lesbian community, and there's no ready-made community in the Jewish community. And, you know, by virtue of time and by the circles that I move in, I've found more connections. Some of people who are Jewish and some mainly people who are lesbians and everything in between. And that's, I guess, where I've found my community. And it's been influenced by the fact that I was raised as part of a minority, and it's been influenced by the fact that I'm visibly a lesbian. But ultimately it's come down to it's those indefinable qualities that where you connect with other people. And when I reread the flyer, it said that, you know, we were supposed to find questions for the audience. So I've written down questions. My main thing that I would I guess I would want people to think about is how you find and create community, and what's important to you in that search. Is it some kind of cultural or religious or faith-based question, or is it something completely different? All right, so that's kind of what I would put out there, and I've managed to make it exactly 8 minutes. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Questions? One question, sorry.
I've got a question.
Oh, yes, you're allowed to answer.
Am I part of your community?
Do I have to answer?
Yeah.
You've got a bit of extra time. Do you want to give a bit of a framework and then...
Oh, we're going to talk about us.
Yeah.
Oh, Ali.
A little bit.
It started a long time ago. Actually, not that long. Yeah, of course you're part of my community. You're one of the people that I spend time with. That's one of my chosen community. And while we may agree and disagree in religion at various points in time, that's obviously not the fundamental part of the connection that we have. Yeah, so, and it's also not about sexuality, because that's also not the only thing we have in common. So, you know, the fact that you work in the community legal sector, the fact that those things are important to you, those are the other underpinning things that bind us more than just sexuality or just the difference in religion. So that's my beautiful answer to you, Ali. Would you like to respond?
Did you want to give a bit of background to that?
I was gonna say,
You go for it.
No.
And you can do it in 1 minute.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. So Ali and I met on a cold, rainy day in Footscray, I believe it was. Yeah, it was at the Women's Circus.
I rejected her.
No, our girlfriends went to uni together, and we bumped into each other at the Women's Circus. And we've since kept in touch, and the four of us hang out a fair bit. And obviously, you know, I think you're one of my few Muslim friends. And that's by virtue of just not knowing many people and not having that many friends. No, Is that my mirror? But I mean, you know, while we've disagreed at various points in time, I don't think that's been a huge problem. Has that been a big problem for you, Ali? We've talked about Israel occasionally. It's never ended well.
Israel in the book.
This is, and I know there are more questions to come. This is a really fantastic issue. Can we take it up after the break? Because I think we can explore this a lot with the audience as well. Sorry to do this, thank you. I want to introduce Morris Wilson, who's from New Zealand, is a New Zealand citizen, but has been paying tax in Australia for 4 years. Morris is, and he's going to correct me if I get this wrong, please do. Morris is Takata Pui. Yeah, I did it. Which means Māori and gay for those of us who do not speak Māori. As a teenager, he participated in GLBTIQ issues in the local areas he had resided in, including lots of health fairs and colleges. In 1991, he was also active in Takatapui affairs, including a GLBTIQ Māori cultural group, and also hosting an international Pride conference in 2002. He was an executive member on the New Zealand AIDS Foundation for 2 years. He now resides in Melbourne with his Turkish Muslim partner, who shall I point the finger from the front? There he is, right at the back. Muslim partner, and has been involved wonderfully with AGMC since 2006.
Utia terito, utia terito te hara keke, Kei whe te ko mako e ko ki mai ki aho maku e ki atu he tangata he tangata he tangata ho. Te tangata mani nei kui tuia. Karongo te pō, karongo te ao, ki te pū kōrero, te wānanga, pū awhioranga, pū takataka te marama. Aho nuku te marama, ahu rangi. Ka takoto koutou e te wao, te wini, te wana, te whakapūtaina, ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama, ti e mauri ora. E tu ana e raro ngā taumata tīmatanga kōrero, me wehe ki te atua me whakahore te ariki ko tūheitia. Ngā tini mate o ia marae o te motu, haere koutou. Ka mihi ki te whare e tū nei, me te pako e takoto nei, tēnā kōrua. Ka mihi hoki ki te Wurundjeri, ngā tangata whenua, tēnā koutou, ngā tuakana tūturu. Ka huri au ki ngā rangatira, ngā tangata hoa, ngā ringa wera, ngā kānohi hau, e mihi niu ki a koutou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Ki te taho o taku matua, ko tōngorero te maunga, ko taupo nui atia te moana. Ko paukura te marae, ko pare kaua te kapu, ko te whare tō te iwi, ko te huhu te tangata. Ki te taho o taku mwhaia, ko taupiri te maunga, ko waikato te awa, ko te kaha roa te marae, ko mahanga te hapu, ko waikato te iwi, ko tūheitia te tangata. Ko Maurice Uihoka, Milroy Wilson ahau. I'm Māori, gay, and proud. And of course, I'm from New Zealand. My father was of Māori and Scottish descent and was a devout Catholic until he met my mother, Māori and Chinese descent, and a practicing Mormon. They both had the same concept of producing mass progeny. I had 7 siblings. But Mum always had the last say, hence my birth and baptism into the faith of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I have no intention to convert anyone here, but this is and how I was nurtured and has been a major contribution to my well-being and my progression in faith that I am happy with. I've just got to put all my notes together. I kind of just got pieces of papers everywhere here. However, is my sexuality more important than my culture or religion? I've got excerpts of what takatapui means. A missionary came to New Zealand, Herbert Williams, and compiled the Dictionary of the Māori Language in 1832. And the meaning of takatapui, he wrote down, was an intimate companion of the same sex. That's it. And this cites the example of Tiki, who we learn is the takatapui, or partner of Tūtanakai, hence associated with the great love story, which is based in New Zealand. This word takatapui is associated with one of the most romantic, glamorized man-woman love stories of the Māori world, Hinemoa and Tūtanakai. Tūtanakai with his flute and his favourite intimate friend Tiki. And Hinemoa, who took the initiative herself, swam the midnight water of the lake, that's Lake Rotorua, to reach him, deliberately masqueraded as a man, a warrior, to lure him to her. Isn't that another intriguing way of looking at the story? And isn't that a way which we, the Māori community and tradition, have been denied? I've got these excerpts everywhere here, and I have another one from, it's actually Gluckman in the 70s. homosexuality in both male and female was unknown in early New Zealand. That was then. Sexual perversion in the modern world is culturally determined by current social, economic, and environmental pressures. This was in 1976. I would like to take a quote that was taken from Georgina Bayer, who's, well, she was our first transsexual mayor and MP in the world. And takatapui is not a word I use constantly. I can use it at times in a Māori situation. That's my Indigenous side. But I can't use it in a United Nations context where there is little concept of Māori, let alone takatapui. The fact that I am Māori is usually the first point made. And that's an important thing to remember amongst other First Nation people I run into all around the world. When you're working for human rights with 100 cultures, you can see how small we, Māori, are. It's nice to recognise our similarities, our common threads, to hear a call that is not unlike our own karana, and their dead are always with us, or with them. And that makes me feel that I am part of something that is more than just being Māori. I am part of a First Nations world culture. Got everything everywhere here, and should have had it all organised. When being born in the country of the North Island in New Zealand, and then moving into the big lights, the city of Auckland, and that's where I became aware that I was Māori. I attended a primary school there, and it wasn't until I attended high school that I realised that I was Māori because I could take Māori language as a second language, and that's what I didn't know. And then ever since high school, I found out more things about myself, including being Māori, being proud of who I am, and where I connected with people that I wanted to, that helped me along my journey in my life. I didn't come out till a week after my 21st, and of course my parents didn't take it so well. My mother always had told me many times, or asked me many times if I was homosexual or gay, and I would deny it before my 21st. However, a sad moment with my mother was the fact that when my father passed and I moved to Auckland back in 1991, my mother actually told me that I had killed my father because of the fact that I had told him that I was takatapui. But she slowly got used to the fact, since I kept bringing over my latest boyfriends and friends that were part of the organisations that I was part of, Te Waka Awhina Takatapui, the Māori GLBTIQ culture group.